Thanks for life. You want love black people. I'm going to say, you're the provider, the Almighty. Joe! Rastafari, live on the meaning of the art of our flesh.
Welcome back to Catcha Fyah after a short break. This is episode number 11. We hope that you would have digested those first 10 episodes. Thanks a lot for viewing, sending us emails, suggestions, whatever the case is. This is episode number 11, like I told you. And this week, we're talking to Mr. Trevor Marshall, one of Barbados' most renowned historians. We're going to be talking about the issue of our Barbadians passive. And if we are, we're going to be getting to the bottom of the issue and looking at a number of factors, push and pull factors that will be contributing to this issue. When we come back on Catcha Fyah.
No, don't you fight us down, yeah. Don't you fight us down. Don't you fight us down. Them now want see we sit on the throne. On the battlefield, I'm a rebel with a cause, never pass. Babylon a devil on the battlefield. I'm a rebel with a cause. Observe the laws of my heart. I am a liberal opposer, practitioner of yoga, position of the cobra, tradition of the shona. Trace back my lineage to inner Ethiopia. Down in a Kemet, me build a pyramid of Joseph. Hieroglyphics, them I call that Medonetra. When me see the sun arise in the sky, me call it Kepa. I praise of Joe the leper, with praises Antonetta. Them come here with them cross, but me said the ank is better, eh. We now want see no beretta, rise up. Figure take a life up, just sip the breath of life up, eh. None of the flesh, I make sure exercise up. And be careful of the one we teach Jesus Christ up on the battlefield. I'm a rebel with a cause, never pass. Babylon a devil on the battlefield. I'm a rebel with a cause. Observe the laws with no flaws. Haile Selassie are the leader, they on the battlefield. Yeah. Humble as a lamb, me just a follow the procedure. Rastaman a healer, beast get trample on the heel. Yeah. Me bust up every seal where them seal. Yeah. Read a couple chapter, then reflect up on the back of them. Focus on the acronym, for open up my chakra them. Seated in the lotus, me a soak up all the oxygen. Kemetic yoga, me bring over from the continent. Africa, that's where we wanna be. We living in a poverty, cause of the economy. Capitalistic and the materiality. We no see reality, only periodically. On the battlefield, I'm a rebel with a cause, never pass. Babylon a devil on the battlefield. I'm a rebel with a cause. Observe the laws with no flaws. On the battlefield, I'm a rebel with a cause, never pass. Send me on a rebel on the battlefield. I'm a rebel with a cause. Observe the laws with no flaws. I am a liberal opposer, practitioner of yoga, position of the cobra, tradition of the shoulder. Trace back my lineage to inner Ethiopia. Down in a Kemet, me build a pyramid of Joseph. Hieroglyphics, me call that Medonetra. When me see the sun arise in the sky, me call it Kepa. I peace of Joe the leper, with praises Antonetta. Them come here with them cross, but me said the ank is better. On the battlefield, I'm a rebel with a cause, never pass. Babylon a devil on the battlefield. I'm a rebel with a cause. Observe the laws of my heart. Haile Selassie are the leader, they on the battlefield. Humble as a lamb, me just a follow the procedure. Rastaman a healer, beast get trampled on the heel. Me bust up every seal with them seal. Read a couple chapter, then reflect upon the factor them. Focus on the acronym, open up my chakra them. Seated in the lotus, I just soak up all the oxygen. Kemetic yoga, me bring over from the continent. Africa, that's where we wanna be. We living in a poverty, cause of the economy. Capitalistic and the materiality. We no see reality, only periodically. On the battlefield, I'm a rebel with a cause, never pass. Babylon a devil on the battlefield. I'm a rebel with a cause. Observe the laws with no flaws. On the battlefield, I'm a rebel with a cause, never pass. Say me on a rebel on the battlefield. I'm a rebel with a cause. Observe the laws with no flaws. No, don't you fight us down, yeah. Don't you fight us down. Don't you fight us down. Them the ones who we sit on the throne. Burning fire, you know. Yeah man, show them say yeah, we're up on the battlefield. Only the righteous warriors can see the victory, you know. And the Selassie I lead the way, you know. Empress Menenai. No, yeah, a green lion now.
So welcome to the program, Mr. Marshall. It's good to have you. I'm a former student of yours. I understand that you recently retired from the Barbados Community College. So I suppose from myself and a lot of other students that would have passed through your hands, I think thank you is in order for all the work that you've done over the years. So welcome to the program. It's good to have you.
Thank you. Very welcome.
Okay. Like I said this evening, my inbox has been inundated with messages, a lot of issues people want us to discuss on the program. And what I said was before we actually get to discussing those issues, I want to go to the finish line, which is what do we do after we confront these issues? So will we do anything about it if I suppose tackle all these separate issues week after week on the program? What will happen? What will be the outcome? So my thing is, I think Barbadians are passive people. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I'm a Barbadian as well. There are a lot of things that we should stand up to, can stand up to that we don't. We discuss them obviously in the barbershops, the salons, on the corner, with our friends, families, etc. So as a historian, I want you to enlighten me this evening. Why are Barbadians so passive, Mr.
Well, an excellent question. And Philippe, whenever we say an excellent question, we mean that it is so complex. It cannot be answered by a yes or no. Initially, we would say, yes, Barbadians are passive people. They're not revolutionary. And the contrast is made throughout the Caribbean society between the Jamaicans on one side, Jamaicans who are extremely self-assertive, and Barbadians who are supposed to be docile, not even passive. Passive means that you allow things to happen, perhaps because it doesn't bother you. Docile means like sheep. You're aware that things are happening, but you allow yourself to be led, to be bullied, to be beaten, etc. You notice, for example, that in Barbados there's been a question of bullying. Bullying at school, but Barbados is a society of bullies and bullied.
If we want to say that Barbadians are non-aggressive, yes, I believe that we are as a people. Passive within the context that we understand that we are disciplined people. We are very disciplined. We are long-suffering. We are not, as I said, aggressive. We are intelligent thinkers. And we speak when we have to speak. We can be shaken when there's a need for us to be shaken. So I would have to say passive as opposed to aggressive. But we are thinkers. We are movers. We are shakers. We are extremely disciplined and mannerly people. And that all sums us up as intelligent, passive people, not docile.
We are well educated. We can read. We can mark, learn, and inwardly digest. We can argue, and Barbadians argue. But where do they argue? At street corners. And when they finish, let me fire around. Or they argue in their houses. They never suit words to action, except it's something like the sewage, what is it? Solid waste tax. And then they look to other people to make an argument for them. Were this Jamaica, you would have people on the streets. You'd have them barricading the roads. Ministers can't pass. People in government would be threatened. In Trinidad, it would happen. In St. Lucia also. Yeah. Right. So we are a passive people when it comes to action, which would make a Barbadian stand up and be counted. Right? But to get about all of these discussions about happenings in the world, happenings in Barbados, happening in Caribbean, go on in Barbados. Very well educated people. But you know where they're gone? In living rooms, in drawing rooms. And because, you know why? We have a passive middle class, a passive black middle class. That middle class which came into being, let's say, in the 1940s through the efforts of Grant Lee Adams, Ernest Dighton Motley. That middle class which is teachers. When the teaching service became democratized, black people got jobs. So they owe a debt of gratitude to a politician, to the Barbados Labour Party. When the Democratic Labour Party came into power in 1961, Errol Barrow legitimized and democratized and enfranchised his own set of people. So people are dependent on political parties to articulate issues for them. And our middle class is not an aggressive, self-assertive middle class. It is a passive middle class. It is a drawing room middle class which will grumble behind closed doors and make fun. It is also a middle class that uses snide remarks. You see, Trevor Marshall, oh my he mother something down in come from St. Johnny Muddy, and he ain't nobody. We're very good at saying, don't mind he is nobody. He's not anybody of consequence. His father, his mother are not some big ups in the society. Or you know what they say about him? Oh, he ain't went to school, he ain't went nowhere. Ignore him. And that is our point. It is not so much that we are by nature passive, but we pay attention to different priorities. Our priority, number one, is saving your skin. Saving your skin from humiliation and from loss of a job. And you notice the Barbadian doesn't even talk in terms of the right to a job. He talks about a pick. He will say, not me and you, but I ain't gonna do anything and make me lose my pick. And you know what a pick is? You get a little pick here. And you know where it comes from? Picking peas or picking some kind of fruit. A boss offers you a job for a short time to pick peas, to pick breadfruits, to pick pears. And therefore, a job is a pick. It is not a right. It's a privilege. And the Barbadian is very concerned about that. He does not figure that he has a right to work to a job. He has a right to work, but not a right to a job. Therefore, he's not going to do anything to jeopardize his little pick. Secondly, he's very concerned about his reputation, his family reputation.
Talk to me about the contributing factors now. What would have contributed to this current situation?
This is a society of gradualism, by which I think Barbadians are a patient people. And they would argue that they're not passive but patient. They argue that people will fly high now, but at some point, the society is going to even itself out. The young Barbadians your age, would argue, look at Blue Box Scat Band. That it was started 31 years ago by some drunken old white men who put some beers and rum into a box cart with wheels, painted it, and who all asked the NCF to be allowed to dance across the stadium on Kadooment Day first, since they were not going to be judged. Then their wives came in, then their daughters, and it was a case of the Blue Box Cart Band, a white Kadooment band going first. Every other people in the Caribbean find that this is the utmost in racism. Barbadians say, all right. No, they're not going to be judged. And at least they're in the festival. What has happened now is that the Blue Box Cart Band is a rainbow box cart band. It has white, it has Indian, it has Latino, and it has blacks. And this is how Barbadian society has gone. The school I attended, law school, was a white school. Now it is a black school, and you can't find a white person there. All other institutions of Barbados are like that. They start off being lily white, racist, discriminatory, segregated, and with the passage of time, they become more or less more integrative.
Okay, how is this different from any other colonial territory in the Caribbean?
Perhaps not different in structure at all, but different in degree. Mm-hmm. In the sense that in other Caribbean ex-colonial territories, blacks are more aggressive. And that brings me to the point. We have more whites in Barbados than aggregatively and in percentage terms than anywhere else in the Caribbean. 3.5% of our population. And they're all in the owning class. And they all employ black labor. So you do not offend the white man. This is the quintessential racist society. It has been racist for almost all of its, 300 and, let us say, from 1627 until now, right? It has been racist for 387 years.
So you have a firm belief in 2014 that Barbados is still a racist society?
It is still a very racist society. Still a very racist, for example.
Can't allow you to get, okay, for example.
No. We have, for example, one of my favorite peeves. If you look in our newspaper at least 3 times every month, for every month of this year, you will see a notice in a small little 2 or 3 inch box. And it goes like this, and I can say it in my sleep. Having found no one suitable, it is our intention to apply to the Chief Immigration Officer for permission to advertise for a non-national to fill the following posts.
How do you interpret that? Because
but sir, that is quite obvious. I've done the research, and the research indicates that by the time that notice has appeared in the newspaper, the person who is a non-national is already in the post, be it yardman, or as in the case of Mr. Ralph Busy Williams, a patriotic Bajan, his CEO. And more to the point, the person is always white. The person is always a Caucasian. The avenues for going overseas and working, they've closed more or less. So Barbadians are forming themselves into little groups. You find service clubs which exist to tell people about their rights. You find groups of women. Women are emerging as the most serious revolutionary group in Barbados. Women are less passive than men nowadays because they're getting better education, they're getting and they're pushing against the glass ceiling. They're going to displace men. They're going to displace black men first, and then they're going to displace white men. They're not going to be able to displace Indian men because Indian men, Hindus and Muslims have a built-in system barrier against women taking over their businesses or else. But our society is going to become a complex society. It's no longer going to resemble the slave society and the colonial society out of which it came. People will use their education. There's an underground paper in Barbados already. The Barbados Underground. There are online papers. Your program is an online program. People like myself who are considered radicals have a voice through you to make issues known. The one thing the Barbadian does not like is disruption in the society. He does not like commotion. He does not like riot and revolution. So the Barbadian is going to find alternate ways of letting their issues be known. For example, look, they're complaining.
I don't want to cut you,
yes.
But is it possible, after so many years of this oppression, this racism that you're talking about, do you think the powers that be even care about yourself or even my program?
That is true. They don't care because they themselves get kickbacks.
Right.
And what you find in that, whenever election comes, big business in Barbados, which is basically white business,
Right.
and they juggle. Which LP?
So where's government in all of this? You talk about
who's government?
Black. Right, precisely.
Well, government, you mean the party in power? But parties in power are simply gatekeepers. They keep the gate swings open or shut it. You stop people from attacking the capitalists. You promise the masses that I will give you more. I will take more from the capitalists and give you. And in that way, you stop people from attacking the capitalists. That's the role of government in Barbados, to stop people from revolting. But government is in itself another oppressor. Every government so far, since the time of Barbados, has oppressed the people. They have allowed, first of all, they've allowed people to come in here with work permits illegally. They've allowed capitalists to exploit the people.
I think Barbadians are passive. We live in a small island. We've got a lot of things to relax us. We could get caught up in the hustle and bustle, but generally speaking, Barbadians tend to be passive, tend to be more easygoing people.
Is there a reason for that? You see anything wrong with that, first of all?
No, I don't see anything wrong with it. And honestly, I suppose that's the island way. That's the way we're all brought up.
You have some firms in which somebody as young as you is in a firm, and he has a senior on an administrative position over myself, 40 years older. And that the government has allowed that to happen. And people have complained. Where we have obvious constraints, people don't even like the unions nowadays. And once upon a time, unions, the Barbados Workers Union, we have a national hero, Frank Walker, we have Hugh Springer, we have Grant Lee Adams, who was president of the union. All of these people, Charles Duncan O'Neill. The union in Barbados was popular and powerful. Unions mean nothing nowadays. Even in the churches, they stop people from discussing certain things. Even in churches, people are not allowed to dress as they like. Women, for example, not allowed to dress in pants. And who makes those laws? Men. Our problem in Barbados has a lot to do with religion, and indeed the Christian religion. There are more Christian denominations here than you would like to think. There's Baha'i, there's Worldwide Church of God, the people who, world tomorrow, Mormons, Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You have Anglicans, Methodists, Moravians, Catholics, Pentecostal, Seventh-day Adventists, Christian Scientists. You have Rastafari, and the Rastafari are considered the scum of the earth. Of course, you know that. Now, the traditional religious groupings in Barbados, Christian, consider that you render to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God. So the traditional attitude of church members is to keep out of politics. Don't get involved in any controversial, and by that they mean any serious issues which are abroad in the society and which need to be ventilated. The aim of the church in Barbados has always been to conform. The religion has a terrible, an absolute hold on
Still
the minds
in 2014, Mr.
Of
Marshall?
course. Check the people. Religiosity or churchism, the fact of going to church, the practice of dressing up and going to church, and doing like the Pharisees, hypocritically raising, oh, bless you, Jesus, and all the time you're trying to gouge out another man's eye, or the preachers are looking at the young girls in the congregation, all right, and you're trying to tell people, oh, don't associate with him or those people, because if they tell you, if you are Seventh-day Adventist, you must have nothing to do with the literature or the people who are Jehovah's Witnesses. And of course, your main enemy are the Catholics. And as for the Anglicans, don't mind them. Yeah. So the religious groupings in Barbados are more separate than my fingers. Each of them believe in a different ideology. And they keep people passive. Because they tell people, do as I say, not as I do. Believe my interpretation of the Bible. And they do not allow for you to have your own views about what is happening. And you don't dare in Barbados to say you're an atheist. Oh Lord, you're going to burn in hellfire. But who knows if there's a God?
So can I ask you what do you believe in?
I believe there's a supreme being. I believe the earth and the skies and everything ordered by some force. I suppose if we call it force, Mother Nature, Father Time, all combined to make God, fair enough. But I don't subscribe to one particular religious denominational argumentation, nor call a dogma or a belief.
One of the things I've found through a little research is you've always had a misconception. You've always had this eerie vibe about Freemasonry in Barbados, about the lodges, etc. What I've found is that a lot of the knowledge that they're teaching or preaching or whatever the case is, it has a lot to do with self-control. Initiation, knowledge of self, and so on. And for me, that can't really be a bad thing. You're a historian, so I don't want to be the one to, speak on that.
Well,
from your knowledge.
Well, let me say first that I have more than average knowledge of the fraternal orders, otherwise called the Masons. They're Masons, but they're the other artisans, Rosicrucians. Etc. And as you say, they're engaged in self-knowledge. And one of the misconceptions is that these people are agents of the devil, that they call secret orders, secret societies, they're supposed to be devil worshippers, etc. But one thing I can reveal to you from my knowledge, from my investigation and research, as any historian would, is that many of our practicing fraternal society men, Freemasons, gardeners, well, not gardeners, what do they call them? They're Christians, they're practicing Christians. And their Sunday go to meet in church, church members. So how can you be a Christian and still be an agent of the devil? These two are incompatible. And that much we can say. All right? But then again, it is part of the practice in this society of governing down discourse. In other societies, the so-called secret societies are not secret, except that people respect their right to privacy, etc. But the mythology which exists in Barbados surrounding them, that is absent. But that befits a society, that betokens a society in which you don't have hard evidence of reality circulating, and you get myths and he say and them say, etc. School is not as important as it used to be. And because school is a place of passive learning. And the youth have enough of passivity. They see old people who are well educated being passive, being unable to change the way the society is governed, etc. So I do agree with you that there need to be a new paradigm, a new standard in education activity.
Okay, as far as there's a big drive now by the Ministry of Tourism and whoever else to recreate, or is supposed to kind of enhance Bridgetown.
Of which I'm part.
Or the history of Bridgetown.
Yeah, of which I'm part.
Okay, you're a big part of that, Mr. Marshall.
Well, yes.
Right, so Here we have a historian. Do you think you're glorifying
Colonialism?
Colonialism, yeah. Do you think you are glorifying it?
One-
Doing these heritage walks?
Well, there's a sense in which you ask your conscience, why am I doing this? What am I doing? But if I may say, on Sunday night, the 20th of July, I brought people up through Bridgetown from the point where the island joined Pelican to a point where the Nelson statue stands. And I told the audience, this statue was placed on the point where your ancestors were auctioned. Where if your 10th generation grandmother objected to people pushing up inside her because she stood there butt naked, they would horsewhip her and send her off to Jamaica or some other island. And the statue there had nothing to do with Barbados. It has been established by white scholars that Nelson did not fight a battle against the French for Barbados. He fought the battle at Trafalgar 4,000 miles away from here. He did not like Barbados. The Barbadians did not like him. This is what I said. The statue is an excrescence. You know what an excrescence is? A sore, a boil, which disfigures your society. And I said that the whites, this was the last insult the whites paid to blacks by putting on the spot where black women were auctioned, were horsewhipped, were finger raped, a statue of a man who supported slavery. Lord, and this would this would resonate with people across the Caribbean because they know about Wilberforce, who was the spirit of the anti-slavery movement. Nelson hated Wilberforce. In the Caribbean, there are tributes to Wilberforce. There is a town in Jamaica called Wilberforce. There's a town in Guyana called Buxton, who was Wilberforce's deputy. There is a statue to Nelson in Barbados. You see the contrast? We have been imposed on. We've been told lies, and we've accepted them passively. Because here's the point. I used the march last night and going around the town of Bridgetown to tell people, well, people say Trevor Marshall is not a historian, I'm a historian. I tell lies. You know why? Because I said that the statue of Nelson is the result of a musty, stinking, frowsy lie. And as a result, other people condemn me. They don't want me to say anything because I speak mouth open, truth comes out. They cannot deny what I say is truth, but they try to discredit me.
But I feel like we could be more progressive and start looking to do things to improve yourself. I mean, there's a lot of things that we could do, but we still laid back, and things happen all around us. Even I see a trend happening now that even non-nationals come in and dominate this place, and we as Bajans, we actually getting run out from view on land. I maybe years ago, all the elbars said that only time we can wake up, we can find that Barbados in view on, and as we that opening, we can see that happening in Barbados right now. Cause we, as individuals, we ain't owning nothing out in this place. All kind of foreign nationals come and own everything in this place.
Okay, talk to me about solutions. Because
solutions, what is to be done?
What is to be done?
No, some people would expect me to ask for a revolution. Let's drive the people into the sea. No, nonsense, you would never get me saying that. I think that osmosis will occur. That the larger solution, that the black people will take over white institutions in Barbados, piece by piece, one step at a time. It will not happen in my time. It might happen in yours. In 40 years' time, the Barbadian society will be different. All the big businesses will be owned by blacks, you know, all the white schools. St. Winifred will be integrated, you know. You would not believe that in your mother's time, St. Winifred was a lily white school, Cotchington High School, St. Gabriel, St. Ursula's. So that is the Barbadian solution, gradualism, right? And Barbadians say, when the people are right, Bo, you fly up in the air, you spit up in the air, and it falls down your face. And they'll offer you a number of homilies and proverbs, you know. Coward dog, keep whole bones, you know, and take time and laziness. And Barbadians are aware of racism. They are aware of this privilege. Some of them believe that they can't do anything about it. But you have some like Commission, etc., who will say, well, march with me. Do this. I will take, as a lawyer, I will take up the cause of the Tudor Street girls and the other people. There are some people who come out and work on behalf of the masses. Okay. And you get more and more people like that.
Okay. Is it possible to say, obviously, there's some people who may argue that Barbadians are not passive, that they rebel in different ways. Is it possible to rebel?
There are layers of rebellion.
Okay.
I would agree there are layers of rebellion. And during the slave period, people rebelled. They sabotaged the masters' activities. They malingered, they pretended to be pregnant when they were not, etc. People can rebel in societies like Barbados, but in certain ways, you know, again, you can sabotage the activities of the people who are rich, white, and powerful, or rich and powerful. You don't have to be white, because we do have black employers now. You can make yourself so indispensable to the owning class that they have to give in to you, and they have to employ your children, your family. That is the way Barbadians have gone.
Yeah.
All right? And these are forms of rebellion.
Yes. Just give me your last words. Emancipation Day. What does it mean for Barbadians? Is it just another day for us to go to the beach, a day not to go to work?
But people are free. And this is the concept of freedom and independence now. You are free to do whatever you want about a particular day. And in bigger societies, people celebrate national holidays however they feel. For many of them, it is a day for recreation. So we are no different. The deeper and more profound meaning of that day is circulated throughout the Caribbean. And I'm sorry to say that given the slave nature of our society, up to 2008, we did not celebrate, we did not know as a people that the 1st of August in every year is commemoration of that proclamation which was made in 1838. Over there by the synagogue, the Jewish synagogue. Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, the governor said. Be it established that as from today, all those persons holding in slavery are decreed by Her Majesty Queen Victoria to be free and free from chains and be forever liberated from slavery, they and their successors and their inheritors and their children. That was said on the 1st of August, 1838. Now we in Barbados were never given the understanding that we were set free from slavery, because the point is that slavery was not spoken of in this society. I always remember my mother, who was born in 1929 and who was a pupil teacher, protesting to me that Barbados never had slavery. And if you believe that you never had slavery, therefore you could never have an Emancipation Day. So you see how not only Adolf Hitler told big lies, but the whites in society told big lies, or they hid the truth. There was no emancipation in Barbados because there was no slavery. And Barbadians didn't come from Africa as slaves, you see. But as I've shown you from my diary, most of the Caribbean territories have 1st of August, 2nd of August, 3rd of August, 4th of August, 5th, 6th of August, as near to the 1st as possible as Emancipation Day. For example, Jamaica, which went to independence in 1962, did so on the Monday, the 6th of August, as close to Emancipation Day as possible. Other people, and you know, 1st of August, I think, comes this year a weekend. So people having 3rd, 4th as celebration. So we have been fooled, we have been gulled, we have been guided. And the same way how we were made to feel that Lord Nelson saved us from the French, which is a big lie, we were made to disrespect and to dismiss and not to commemorate Emancipation Day. Emancipation Day was Christmas in August for black people. Father Christmas came and said, you are free. The greatest gift to our people is to be free. And therefore, if you don't tell people that on this particular day, they, having been slaves before, were now free, you have them in perpetual captivity and slavery. So until 2009, when the government decreed that henceforth, the 1st of August would be known as Emancipation Day, Barbadians were still in mental slavery. That mental slavery of which Bob Marley signed. Right? So we are now still emancipating ourselves from mental slavery. Hence the passivity. If you don't know you're free, you act as though you're still a slave. And by and large, Barbadians still act as though they're slaves. For example, if you see a white female going down the road, will you say white woman or white lady? White lady? And if you say white woman, people look at you, how dare you call a white woman a white woman? That black woman, that white lady. Simple things like those. Simple things like those. We regard the white man and his lady as our masters and mistresses.
You're going back to Africa, Mr. Marshall? You believe in...
Well, I've been back to Africa. I've been back... In 1990, I went back to Africa.
I mean to live, to reside.
Not necessarily, because in Barbados and in the Caribbean, we have to lay down our buckets and fight. As a historian, I have been fighting to emancipate the minds of my students. Some people want to go back to Africa, and it's legitimate. They're Chinese in Australia, all right? They're Indians in Argentina. There are people who want to travel all over the world, all right? There are people who want to go back to Africa. Some want to go back to India. Some Russians want to go to America. The idea is movement and freedom. Once upon a time in Barbados, you could not mention the word Africa. In fact, if you saw a person several degrees darker than myself and you call him an African, he would probably kill you, because that was an insult. The only worse insult than that was to call him black. And I tell you, until the 1970s, to call a person in Barbados black was an insult. The idea that black is beautiful has only come from the Americans, you see, because our minds were so governed that anything coming out of Africa had to do with polygamy and cannibalism and savagery and lions and tigers and bears.
So
although you have no tigers in Africa or bears.
What about payment and reparations? Are we Jew?
Yes,
Any
we're
money?
Jew. We're Jew. Look, in 1914, the Germans started war on the world, the Great War, the First World War. By 1918, over 40 million people has been killed, partly because of the Germans. The Germans were saddled with a debt, reparations, repairing. You destroyed homes, families, countries, houses, factories. You have to pay reparations. Even closer to home, the Haitian people on black slaves in Haiti under Toussaint Louverture revolted from their masters, drove them out, killed them off, destroyed their plantations. The slaves declared themselves independent from their mother country, France. France said, we will accept you as an independent nation, but you must pay reparations. $26 million, which is like $26 billion in today's money, the Haitians had to pay. From 1804, you know when they finished paying it? 1926. They had to pay France for gaining their independence. And we are looking at the fact that, as Bob Marley says, old pirates, yes, they're robbed I, sold I to the merchant ships. The slave caravans of the Arabs, the Europeans, the Dutch, the French, the Spanish, Portuguese, the Germans, the Brandenburgers, the Americans, all raped Africa of its young people, brought them across the Caribbean. You know, there was a saying, God made the black man so that animals can have a rest. So black people were considered two-footed beasts of burden to work here in the sugarcane plantations, etc. And black people didn't trouble anybody. This is a point that people are always missing. But some people say, oh yes, they brought you from Africa where there was no religion. There was polygamy, there was savagery, there's polygamy, there's savagery all across the world. Look at Russia, shooting down planes, that's savagery. But nobody wants to enslave the Russians. The Africans then telling the body to bring them across here. That is one thing that people miss. The Africans were all right in their villages, and white people went and took them up, herded them, put them in boats and tell them to come across here because they were black. So reparations have to be paid. And reparations have to be paid to us, the descendants of those African people. Not in money, but in scholarships, to send us to European universities, to teach us all of the technology, which makes our people more independent than we are today, right? And that is what we mean by reparations, to repair the damage you did to a people. There's a sense in which you cannot have enough reparations because most black people are still slaves. Most black people still see white people as their natural masters. After all, 400 years of conditioning cannot be wiped away. But one step is to make people pay. When people commit crimes, you make them pay. Either you fine them or you confine them. And the white people perpetrated a crime against humanity. The United Nations, which has all the white nations in the world involved, said and decreed that slavery was a crime against humanity. And if the principle is that for a crime perpetrated, you have to pay, those who perpetrated the crime against Africa and Africans must pay. It is as simple as that.
All right, your final words, Mr. Marshall. We're out of time. It's been really a blessing speaking to you on episode number 11. I want you to take the floor. Closing words.
Closing words.
Yes,
my closing words are that I believe in young people. I've spent the last 35 years teaching young people. And there's a vibrancy, a curiosity, a naivety even among young people. But the willingness to challenge authority, the willingness to challenge present reality, the willingness to be surprised and to follow their dreams, and an unwillingness to be passive. I think young people in the Caribbean and young people in Barbados are not passive. And the most aggressive young people in Barbados are the females. I believe in that, I respect that, I love it. And young men are going to have a hell of a time dealing with the young women of tomorrow. I look forward to watching it.
I know a few ladies are going to enjoy that last comment. We're going to close there. Thank you so much for viewing.
After all, I have 4 daughters and 1 son.
Right, there you go. Thanks a lot, Mr. Marshall, for coming on the program.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah. We see you guys in episode number 12.
If there's one.
For life. Yeah, man, love black people. I'm just saying, you're the provider, Celestia, the Almighty. Joe! Rastafari live on the end of the art of our flesh. Palonji, boom, get to place of fire.